the spotlight. You know that it feels like time to put up a fight, honey. Got nothing left to lose, so let's start right now. Everybody want a piece of you. Gotta give them what they want, it's true. You're symphonic, yeah, so iconic. If you didn't know before, now you know. Now you know. Take a big step away from who you were. Flashing that smile and the whole world's a blur. Dancing in the limelight, oh you're on it.
Positively powerful, not powerfully positive. I mean, they're both good ways of saying what we're trying to do here. Scott Fitzgerald along with Stacey Steinmiller to do another episode of this fantastic live stream that we've been doing. And of course I say that because I love doing this. I don't know if it really is fantastic. I think it is. I get a lot out of it, and that's all that matters to me. So how are you doing, Stacey?
I'm living the dream.
You're living the dream. We had off mic. We had a discussion about whether or not it should be living the dream or living my dream, because but Stacey won as usual. So so here's the thing that I want to talk about today, and it's communication. So I'll set up a scenario for you, and we can riff off that. So there's a situation where people are working closely together, whatever it is. One of them is highly stressed, but hiding it well. Okay. One of them is highly stressed and hiding it well. The other one is not highly stressed, is just focused on the job and doing the job. And the person who is focused says something to the person who is highly stressed, something like, hey, we're running low on time. And the person who is highly stressed completely interprets everything in that short sentence. And they hear it in such a way that it's like, hey, we're low on time. What are you doing? Like the delivery makes them feel, now they start to get more stressed because now they're thinking, oh, I'm screwing things up. I'm doing a bad job. I'm whatever it is. And I wanted to talk about that that breakdown when you are in a highly stressed or a highly emotional state, how what you see and hear is your own perception, is your own reality. So you might perceive it as aggressive or, you know, something like that, where it's actually not. It's actually just middle of the road. You know what I mean? So yeah. That's the situation I wanted to break down today.
Fun. I love it. Yeah. So that's why, working on your overall stress is really helpful in learning to get honest with yourself on how you're really feeling and what's really going inside and why that can drastically change your life, right? So if you have that self-awareness to know, I'm super stressed out right now, this is what's happening, then that helps you to be able to take some steps back to lower that stress so that you don't interpret things in a way that's unhelpful. But usually once you're in that moment, there's not a whole lot you can do, but there's a lot you can do outside of those moments to help prevent those things from going haywire, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, Scott's not ready.
So, backstory before I'm going to side rail you a little bit here. Wait, that came out right. My phone, I guess, when I was going to bed last night, I pulled the covers up and I heard a thud on the floor, but I thought it was the dog's toy. but it
Mm.
was my phone. So my phone was under the bed all night, and when the alarm went off this morning, I couldn't find it. I was flipping out. I'm like, "Where the hell is this phone?" Is it? I'd go this way, and it would sound like it was there, but then all of a sudden, it would sound like it's across the room, and I'd go back and finally found it. But
It's
anyways, I was
hilarious.
just trying to plug in my phone because it's almost dead because it didn't get the charge last night, and
Mine too. Yeah.
I had
Fun.
that, that USB phenomenon where the first time you plug it in, it doesn't work. So you flip it upside down and it doesn't work. But the first time you were right, but now it works every time, every damn time. All right.
Naturally.
So
Naturally.
going back to the subject at hand, my issue is in when I know for me, when I'm in a highly agitated or stressed state, it's I often know that I'm in that state, but I
Mm.
often feel powerless to especially if there's a lot going on and like we're in the middle of a recording and I'm doing a lot of things and maybe I've had some sort of a technical failure that I'm trying to work through. That kind of stress. Now, granted, I kind of tend to work well in that stress, just
Hmm.
because of the many years of having to deal with it. It's not my favorite way to work by any means, but I think I've gotten to a point where I can work in that stress. However, I am not my usual happy-go-lucky gregarious self. I am focused. I am monotone. I am direct. I'm not rude, but let's
Hmm.
get this done. We got to get this done. This is what's happening. And that, if someone else is stressed in that situation, that can be also misconstrued
Hmm.
as being angry at them for whatever's happening,
Yeah.
or you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
is there something that we can do with our coworkers that can say like, all right, we're both in a very stressed out state like right now, and obviously this isn't always possible, but I guess when it is possible, you know, is it something that we should do? Like, let's take a minute. And I know people have done this before, but it's just never really dawned on me. You say,
Mm.
you know what? Let's take a minute. And especially even in a recording, when we're recording something, we can say, obviously not live, but if we're recording, we say, let's take a minute. Let's think through this. Let's take a breath, and then we'll come back into it. You know what I mean? And let's
Yeah.
discuss or whatever. Um, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, if you have the time to do it, might as well. And it also comes from learning each other, right? Knowing and
Yeah.
believing. So a lot of people like they'll refuse to believe something if they'll know, like, well, I know Scott gets a little short when he's stressed. And I can say, I know not to take that personally. But if you haven't done enough of your own work yourself, you're still gonna take it personally. You like
Yeah.
can't like you can't like pretend it doesn't bother you
Yeah.
if it actually does bother you. And it's not something for you to fix, Scott, right? That would be something for that other person to fix because that's their own stuff that nothing external will fix that for them.
That's a really good point because then that's how I end up feeling like I need to change how I'm doing things because of how that other person is interpreting that. So it's like I know that I may be
What?
I
Was
love
somebody
when
commenting?
people comment. Not to stress you out,
Is
but
it
Stacey is
Todd?
loud and Scott is very quiet.
Oh, well, so yeah, I was wondering if that was going to happen because I had to turn my volume up for
Uh
you.
my volume's really low. All right, let's turn this shit up. Let's turn this shit up.
Thanks, Dad. You're the
Not to
best.
stress us out. Does it sound better? Is it louder?
Are we even? I
Huh?
do tend to be loud.
Yeah, you are. All right, that should be good. It looks like my levels are a little bit better now. Thanks, Deborah. I didn't realize that was a technical comment. That I thought it was an overall comment that I'm quiet and you're you're loud.
Oh,
Dennis
love
brings
it.
this up that his wife and he are struggling with this currently, and I was just
Mm.
going to bring up. Thanks, Dennis. I was just going to bring up that very thing, like with my wife when if she's having a bad day, usually because of work or maybe because of the kids or something else, um, I know like if she's being short with me or if she's being distant, I know to let her remain distant until she is ready to not be distant. You know, like
Mhm.
I know after the 22 years of marriage that we've gone through right now, that we've experienced, that we know each other enough to say, okay, you're having a moment. I'm going to let you have that moment, and then when you're ready, you'll come talk to me. Whereas when you don't know a person as well, you might be having a moment and you might be expecting the other person to say, "Hey, are you okay? Can I help you?"
Right.
And that person might not think that it's the right thing to do. And so there's a breakdown there too, because now you're like, well, this person doesn't even care about me. I'm having a breakdown here and they're not even asking how I am.
Right.
And it's like, and they're not thinking about that other person. Like this has actually happened to
Yeah.
me recently
Yep.
where someone was like, why didn't you ask me how I was doing? And I was like, because after, you know, this is how I deal with my wife. Like when she's having a
Right. Yeah.
moment, I let her go. That's just what I
Yeah.
do. So it's like, of course
Yeah.
I was interested. Of course I wanted to know how you were, but
Yeah.
I'm trained. It's almost like, you know,
Right.
that's how it
You're trained to
is.
respond that
I'm
way.
trained to
Exactly.
respond that way.
Yeah.
And that's how I respond with
Yeah.
everybody. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that also comes
Yeah.
into play.
Right. So we do have to learn each other. Um, or it's helpful if you know that person really well, and you might be able to adapt, for different people. But this is where self-responsibility comes in. And if both parties are taking full responsibility for their own stuff, um, then that's going to go a long way, if that makes sense. Like,
Oh, yeah.
not
Yeah.
like, oh, they should be checking in on me or they should be leaving me alone, right? If you're in the like, they should, like, there's your own little red flag for yourself,
That's
if that's
important.
helpful.
So my takeaway from that is that when you're in one of these stressful situations, if you find yourself saying, they should be doing this, like I believe they should be acting a certain way, then you're just projecting your own thing onto them. And
Yeah.
you really need to take a step back and take a moment and be like, all right, I'm expecting them to react the way I want them to react, not how they might know to react or how they normally react. And that's not fair to that person.
Right, exactly. And you can, so if you become aware of that, then you can take responsibility for it. And then you can flip it into an ask, right? A need. If you're noticing, like, you know what, I'm actually feeling really insecure right now because I feel like I screwed up. And right now I'm wanting reassurance from my partner or whoever because of that. Now you can actually go ask for it.
Hmm.
And you can be vulnerable about it. Be like, hey, I'm feeling a little insecure right now because there's a little rift between us, and my usual need is wanting reassurance. And instead of expecting that from you and then getting mad when I don't get it from you, I'm wondering if that's something you can give me right now.
And that, I mean, I really believe that I want to believe that most people would respond positively to that
Yeah.
vulnerability, to
Yeah,
someone
if you
saying,
do
hey,
it right, if you show
you
up
know,
vulnerably, honestly, you take account for your stuff, 90% of the time, the other
right.
person's probably
But
going to
we all know
respond
those 10
positively.
percenters. We all know the ones who be like, oh, wow, grow a pair. You know, oh, wow,
Hmm.
you don't feel like you're being, you know what I mean? Like there's always that person, and you just got to hope that that's not the person you're dealing with. But, you
Yeah.
know, it really comes down to this whole phenomenon of being self-aware and being aware of others. And it's sometimes I feel like it's not something that people can do. They can, if they're aware of themselves. I mean, so many people are not aware of themselves at all.
Right.
I mean, you see them in
Right.
Wegmans all the time. It's like they just, two of them stop and start talking right in the middle of a lane, and you're like, really? Like you have absolutely no consideration for anyone else in this store. It's your store and we're all just kind of existing in it. So it's like me when that happens and I'm talking to someone, I immediately look and see like, let's move over to the side. Am I in somebody's way? Like I'm constantly worried about being in somebody's way. If I'm stopping to text, I move over to the side. I go to the end of, the end cap. So I'm like out of the major lane. Now, I don't know, maybe I'm an outlier. Maybe I'm just weird because I'm constantly cognizant of my physical space and what's around me. Some people are oblivious to that. They're absolutely oblivious. And do you think that their spatial their obliviousness to spatial awareness that might actually factor into their awareness of other people's feelings? Do you think they're related?
Oh, I mean, that might be interesting. But again, there's also like you still have to have like your perception of what's kosher and what's not, right? And I was also kind of smiling and laughing because the people that have more expectations, like you have here, and I'm not saying like you're wrong. I'm not saying you're like way off into something ridiculous. But I notice, especially as my job as a therapist, that people that had more of those expectations on how others should be and what those rules are tended to be a lot more miserable than the ones that didn't give a shit.
Interesting.
Right.
So wait, are you saying that I should not care that someone is blocking the lane?
Wait, what would it be like if you didn't let it, if like it didn't matter?
Well, I'm not saying that it ruins my day and I'm like going around
Right.
yelling and screaming. It's just one of those annoying things. Like,
Or could
why?
you ask them to move?
Oh, I always do. I say, "Excuse
Okay.
me." I just go,
Yeah.
"Excuse me, coming through."
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things that I go, like, really, you don't realize it. I don't know. Maybe is that am I projecting my own? Like, it seems like it's a common courtesy and not some kind of.
I get that. Yeah, I get that. Like, I'm not saying like you're wrong or like you're coming
Yeah,
from,
because we're not. That's a different show where you tell me I'm wrong the whole time. That's a different show. That's not this show. That's our Thursday meeting. That's
our Thursday. Yeah,
meeting.
exactly. That's when I'm like, you need to stop that shit, Scott.
This is your problem, Scott.
But you just will be happier if it was just say, oh, excuse me, and let it go. Like not going into like, how should the world look? What it's not matching my expectation, or there must be something wrong with them, or or whatever. And it could be a very courteous person and they might be oblivious. Or who the fuck knows what's going on with them? We don't know. So it's just better not to have the stories attached to it and just, go, well, what do I need right now? I need to get down the aisle. What's the fastest way to do that? The fastest way is to say, excuse me. Now, if they say, just walk around me, buddy, and there's some sort of like, right now they're being confrontational. Like now I would say, okay, this person is an asshole and they have some issues, you know what I mean? But if they're like, oh yeah, and they get out of the way, then I wouldn't really like think too much of it.
So you're thinking that I shouldn't have those expectations for other people? If someone's standing in the aisle blocking, I should not even like think about it. It should just be like, there's someone here.
I think you'll be happier. I think you'll be happier if you don't have that expectation, and you can even take it a step further, and there could be something good that could happen from it. Because when you say, excuse me, there might be some sort of eye contact. Maybe there's like oh, do I know you? Or, oh, your voice sounds familiar. And then you can be like, oh, you know what? Like I was on radio and I have this like recording studio and I host people that do podcasts. And they're like, oh my gosh, I was thinking about starting a podcast. And then all of a sudden Scott has a new client because he nicely said, excuse me, in Wegmans. Sorry.
Funny story is I did pick up a client in Wegmans.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah. But not because I said excuse me. It's just because they saw the microphone on my shirt and asked me a question about it. Yeah, that is definitely not my style. I will say excuse me and continue on my way, but I will definitely not start shooting the shit.
Right.
But I like the example. I think that's, and it is something for me to work on, to not be bothered by that. Like,
Right.
I'm it may bother me for 8 seconds, but it's still, that's 8 seconds that I just lost. And I guess if you
Right.
count up all those 8-second bothers, then maybe I'll get a good 5 minutes out of it. Who knows?
And this is more about the overall energy, right? And yeah, so if you're not having this negative story around the people being in the way or in the middle of the aisle, then yeah, when you say it, yeah, you'll have a different tone of voice. You'll just, yeah, you won't think about it, and then you kind of bebop around. Um, versus just kind of being like, what the hell is wrong with people? Right. And then you start to have that disposition about society and who people are and blah, 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 blah. And that's when it really snowballs into a problem.
And again, this does actually, I mean, so like everything that we talk about, it comes back to energy in some way, right?
Yeah.
But this also comes back to communication, because obviously if I don't communicate the fact that I need to get through, they don't know.
Right.
They're innocently just having a conversation. I haven't seen this person, and who knows, maybe who knows what their backstories are.
Right.
And I just and then there's also the way that you communicate. Excuse me, coming through, or excuse me. Like,
Right.
there's
Exactly.
those people
Yes.
too. Like, excuse me, why don't you? There's the ones that also will say that and be like, oh, why don't you just stand in the middle of the aisle? Jeez.
Yeah. Then you do a big dance if they do that.
Right. Bust out the card table and start playing poker or whatever. Those well, see, that's the exact person we were talking about before, when you get all vulnerable and they tell you to grow a pair. That's that person. That's the 10%.
Right. So have you heard the cup analogy?
No. Do tell.
That is, you got a cup. Well, look, I have a cup. So if somebody bumped into me right now, I would, there's coffee in my cup. I'd get coffee would spill, right? If somebody bumped into me right now. And so then you'd be like, oh, you just spilled coffee all over me. Um, I can't retell this story very well. But if there was water in my cup, then I'd get water all over me. So it's whatever's in the cup is what spills out. So the idea is, if there's anger and frustration and whatever in, right, and you get, quote, bumped into, that's what's going to come out. If there's joy and love and gratitude in here and you get bumped, that's what's going to come out. So that's the point of the story, but apologies for this complete butchering of this analogy.
I thought you were going in a completely different direction. I was going to say, that's how like 90% bar fights start, because someone bumps in.
Right.
I didn't know if that was going to be a part of the confrontation, but I like that. I like that analogy, that whatever's in here, when it gets riled up and something spills out, that's what's going to spill out. So like you said, if it's anger, if it's resentment, if it's any of the bad, dark feelings, they're going to come out. And if you're just full of sunshine, rainbows, and bunnies, the bunnies are going to come out.
Right, exactly.
And it's called teeth. I'm sorry. So I guess, kind of like the whole point of this was to try to see if there's a way that you can express to people how to be more mindful, because it's not easy when you're in the moment, when you're in a stressful situation, to not, it's like your amygdala takes over and it's fight or flight a lot of times. And so to break that cycle and go, hold on a second, let me take a second and think about this. I think if in my situation, my recent situation that this is kind of about, if that were to have happened by either one of the parties, it would not have gone to where it went. Now, I will say that afterwards, we all we all know each other better for it. We all understand each other, had a nice conversation about our own expectations and what we're expecting from each other. And, so it's just like that, the idea of, I know how I want you to react, but you don't know how I want you to react. And so I can't
Right.
put that on you. I can't say, why didn't you react the way I expected you to react? And
Right.
it's very similar to that. So I just love, I don't know, there's a lot of takeaways I think from this conversation, but
Yeah.
I
And
love
there's like
bouncing these
10
ideas
more
off you.
million more things we could talk about too.
Oh, there
It's
always
like so
is.
in depth. Yeah.
But I love having these conversations with you, because what my whole hope is that someone will hear bits of this conversation and think about it when they're in that situation and be like, oh, this is what they talked about. I'm gonna, if it can help someone
Yeah.
be mindful in the moment and help them avoid some sort of, emotional catastrophe,
Yeah.
then the job is done.
Job done. Yeah. I
How have
love
you
it.
been? We haven't really talked. How is your business going? How are your? I see you posting a lot about these wins, these client
Yes.
wins.
I know. I love posting client wins. That's something I started doing, I don't know, the past couple months. I would do it very rarely before. Um, and then I really got into focusing more on celebration because I know the more gratitude that you're in, the more celebration, the more goodness that you keep attracting. And so I decided, I was like, I'm gonna share more wins. I'm gonna start talking more about it. And people ask me, they're like, "Wow, things are going great for you." And I'm like, "Well, really, I just started sharing it. That's all I did that was different was I'm just telling the world like, hey, there's this win, whether it's my win or a client win or whatever. I'm just making more of an intention to focus on the good stuff. And that makes me happier. I think it makes my clients happier
Yeah,
and it attracts more good stuff. And then people can really see how amazing the work is because I want people to, get their dreams and live their best life. And a lot of people think like, oh, that's not possible. I can't do that. And so also by sharing the wins, I'm trying to communicate that it is possible, you know.
totally possible. Totally possible. The energy that you bring into every situation in your life is so crucial. And I say this all the time. I wish this was something that I understood 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Because I always went into everything like, "Ah," just there was no, you know what I mean? It was like a bull in a china shop. There was no, I'm just walking through here, let's see what happens. And yeah, of course, when you go to a meeting or you go to something, you intend, you're like, I hope this meeting turns out well. I hope I get what I want out of this meeting, or I hope this party is fun, or I hope I meet somebody here. Something. But that's completely different than the energy that you bring to something. That's like a hope. That's like I hope that this turns out well, as opposed to going in and saying, this is going to be awesome. This is going to be awesome because that's what I'm bringing to this.
That's amazing, Scott. And I'm really glad you
Yay!
said that. No, I'm so glad you said that because people even talk about how we need hope. And I come in and, with my edginess and I was like, well, hope is actually like giving your power away, right? Like, and that's how you describe that of, well, I hope this party is well, right? Instead of I'm deciding I'm going to have fun in this party, so I'm going to show up with the energy and that decision that I'm going to have fun at this party. And so that's really awesome. I'm so glad that you said
Yeah, I used to like to say, you can crap in one hand and hope in the other and see which one fills up first.
that.
Hey, that's another episode. Well, this has been enlightening as usual. Um, let's remind the fine folks where they can find you. Well, actually, they
Oh, well, they
probably
can
already
find
know
me.
because they're the ones watching. It's your friends.
Right, yeah. If you're
It's your
watching
friends.
this, you've probably found me. But I am not hiding, that's for sure. I
No,
am everywhere.
you
But
are.
you
You are
can
omniscient.
message me on whatever platform you are watching this on. You can comment on it. You can email me. You can go to my website, radicallifecoach.com. You can find me on Mighty. That's members.radicallifecoach.com. I am everywhere. So, you can
Stacey
call me
Steinmiller, everywhere you want to be.
wherever you want.
She's like what is that, American Express or something?
Where's Scott? Where's
Rockvox.com.
Scott?
Rockvox.com. That's the website, which we're in the process of making better eventually. That'll happen. If you've got podcasting or live streaming or video production or voiceover work or something like that, or you want to get into voiceover, maybe it's something that you'd like to do as a side hustle, reach out to me and we can start that process for you. And I am already looking forward to next week. And we'll talk late Tuesday to discuss what we're going to talk about. To
Or if
decide the
anybody has
subject.
any ideas, or if
Yeah,
somebody
yeah.
wants us to, I love doing that. Like, so I know Scott's always trying to think about what we're going to talk about, and I never do, but that's how I work. I don't plan ahead of time. I spent years as a therapist. I didn't know what the person across from me was ever going to say. So I am used to just whatever somebody gives me is what I work with, and I like working that way. So if you guys ever have any suggestions or want us to dive into something, then I actually enjoy that. So
Yeah, you're really good off the cuff. You're really like, here, talk about this, and you go. So that's brilliant. It's perfect. It's perfect. All right. Well, I'll see if we can do this again. Every time I try to do this, I always kind of screw it up. So I'm gonna see if I can actually play us out with the music. And
we did it.
are you gonna walk
did
into the
it.
pond today?
I was just gonna say, you want me? I don't want to walk in the pond. So.
Yeah, we'll do that every once in a while. We don't want to overdo
Right,
that.
we gotta,
that
yeah. We don't want to give them too much of the goodness, right? You gotta like spread it out.
All right, we'll see you next Wednesday at 10 a.m. on Positively Powerful.
Right now, everybody want a piece of you. Gotta give them what they want, it's true. You're so funny, yeah.